Hi, welcome to the Chad Bozarth Show. Thanks for listening. Nancy, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Chad.
Hey, I had to be honest with you, even as I was just firing this up, I started getting emotional. It's so weird.
Oh,
I felt a wave of emotion come over me because I just want to say thank you. You were I almost feel like crying like right off the bat.
you're making me cry.
It's so weird. I'm recording this and this is weird, but
No,
going to your, you know,
oh my gosh.
yeah. I
You're
didn't
making me
plan to do
cry. You usually make me laugh.
no, but going to your class really helped me
Oh, I love it.
in a really difficult time in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And so I just want to say thank you.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Well, that was probably the best thank you I've ever gotten. That was beautiful. Thank
yeah,
you. You just made me cry.
yeah. Uh, Coming to your class all those years and my dad was sick and just coming in and getting to be vulnerable in your class and learn acting and being in that environment and learning from you. It was I'm so thankful for that time, you know.
Well, you were an amazing talent, but it was so exciting to see you finally kind of get rid of, your thinking brain and just really trust your amazing creative gut and just play. I mean, some of my absolute favorite memories of teaching at all time for what is it, 31 years now is, with scenes with you in it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, uh, that's a good segue because I want to ask you how you got into acting, but since we're already here, we jumped in. You know, being in that environment where you kind of give everybody permission to take risks and everybody's kind of on the same page. How should an actor deal with when they get out on set and maybe everybody's not on that same page? You know, they're not.
Yeah.
I don't know how to ask that question, but you know what I'm talking about? There's such safety in the context of that class because everybody is you're yeah, you're on the same page, but in life it's not like that necessarily.
Well, that's why I think what I try to teach is true autonomy. I mean, if you remember, I never tell you how to feel. I never tell you how exactly to do a scene. I give you suggestions and throw ideas out and show you what could work better or be stronger choices so that you learn from the inside out how to, in a moment's notice, trust your gut. So if something's going off the rails, your gut's going to come up with, "Hey, what about this?" And you just trust it. You know what I mean? And that's a hard thing to learn. It was hard for me to learn. I come from I call myself a recovering type A perfectionist. So because back in the early days of my acting, it was all about being perfect, rehearsing it a million times, knowing exactly
Hmm.
what was going to come and how I was going to do it, and then I would get the applause or approval or whatever, and it felt great. But I knew something was missing, and it was that creative spark, that thing that just happens when you're in a conversation with somebody and you just think of something funny or you have an idea and it just where does that come from and then but when you're on camera, learning how to trust that moment or learning how to trust if someone else is, maybe doesn't have all their lines memorized and you're rolling, you're on set and you know, you have to learn how to bounce off of that, because
Hmm.
oftentimes if you're completely memorized and someone else isn't, they're just improving. So they look like they're memorized and you're like, you didn't say the word that I needed to prompt the next sentence, so I got to pivot quickly, and then if you're hesitating, you look like you're the one who's not memorized, which is so frustrating and baffling to me. But so I think maybe I don't know if I'm answering your question because remember I'm
Yeah.
ADHD, so I'm gonna circle around. But I think it's truly just learning how to in my class teaching you so much autonomy that you just learn how to, when you're out and amongst others who have trained differently or not trained at all or forgotten their training or just whatever egos, that you just learn to trust that creative spirit that got you on the set in the first place. It's a lot of, it takes a lot of work to get yourself to the point where someone's casting you.
Mm,
There's a lot of
yeah.
people that think they can act and and not all of them can. And it's, so you guys have put in a ton of work and time and effort. And so by the time you get to set, I feel like, my hope is that you really trust that your machine is a well-oiled machine. Even though your head wants to go, oh, that's a big star. Oh, that's like, that's my hero or whatever. You got to trust where you are, even if your credits may not reflect how strong of an actor you are. You got to trust inside of you that the knowledge that you have and the creative spirit that you have is just going to like take care of you, no matter
Mm,
what happens. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good. Well, let me ask you, how did you get into acting in the first place?
Funny you should say that. I'm in Florida for my 45th high school reunion.
Wow.
I know. I'm
Oh,
so
sorry. That came out wrong.
no, no, it's a wow. That's a real, and we're like, okay, 5 years. It's like 50 years right there. I know. I'm like, how did I mean, I'm not ready for a walker yet. How did I get here? Okay. And so that was how. And I was just talking to one of my English teachers. She came and she later became the principal of the school. And we sat next to each other when we were talking, and I was telling her my story. And that was it. Was I was an artist. I was a fine artist. I did not. I was painfully shy. That was not on my radar. It's not on my bingo card or my bucket list. And
Hmm.
I went to take a test, a scholarship test at an all-girls college prep school called Rosarian Academy, which is now a co-ed elementary school, sadly, but it's amazing. Looks like a, I don't know, college. It's crazy how beautiful it is. But
Hmm.
they showed me around the school, and then they showed us 15 minutes of Fiddler on the Roof in a million
Hmm.
dollar, when I was in high school, $1 million theater. Now that's nothing, but at the
Wow.
time it was a big deal. We had a hydraulic lift orchestra pit on the front of the stage. We had a catwalk. We had a lighting booth. We had a ticket booth. Of really, it was all connected, and 500 velvet covered seats and wardrobes and costume. It was crazy. But they showed us that 15 minutes, and I felt kind of like a lightning bolt through the top of my head, sear
Wow.
the center of my being. And I even looked up to God, and I'm like, seriously? Because that was, nobody I knew acted. I didn't know how I was supposed to get up on that stage. I just knew that's where I was supposed to be. And so when I went home to my parents, I said, I have to go to that school. And they said, okay. And then they had to mortgage the house. They had a little, yeah. It was like going to college. It was a boarding school. I didn't board, but it was not cheap. And they had a scholarship. It's called Doorbell, and I would answer the phones in the door at the boarding school, boarding part of the school, boarding house, I should say. And all 4 years, and yeah, and that's what we did. But I would try out for plays, and I was painfully shy. And my voice teacher, she was not a nice lady. And after I'd auditioned for her, and I had a speech in her class, and I wanted to die. And she said, "How do you expect to be a great actress if I can't hear you at the back of the class?" And I'm like, "I don't want to be an actress. I can't be an actor." I just was. I wanted to die. And she went away, and they were replaced by really great directors, Joy and Glenn Evans, and they were amazing. And I kept auditioning, and I kept just getting dance roles because you couldn't hear me. I was so shy. And when I was 17, my sister was a scenic. It's a longer story than you were probably asking.
No, this is great.
When I was 17, my sister was a scenic artist or a scenic detailist. She did the details and the properties mistress of the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater. You know her?
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Hmm.
And I was like, it's been a long time. So at the time, Burt Reynolds was the top box office draw in the world. He was like,
Wow.
it was a massive. It's different than now where everyone's a star, but it was like he was it. He was it.
Wow.
And they were behind on Babes in Arms, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know if we're gonna get finished." I said, "Cynthia, I'm an artist. I can paint. Like, let me come." And she was like, "No, no, no." And then she finally said, "All right, but if you embarrass me," and I was just so just excited and thrilled. I was like a kid in a candy shop. I painted sets. If they needed coffee, I ran and got them coffee. And the first week, so I painted the first week, and then I helped them with the changeover because I'm like, I'm part of the crew, man. I got to help. And so the changeover is when they go from one play to the next. And they went from, I think it was Barefoot in the Park with Farrah Fawcett. It was her first play. And they changed from that to Babes in Arms and all white set. So I'm there and I was trying to be cool. I wear glasses. And so I took my glasses off because I wanted to be cool. I was back when I could. I'm blind as a bat. I was trying to blend in with the apprentices. I was 17. And my sister called me over and she goes, "You know who that is?" And I'm like, "Cynthia, I've been here a week. I don't know who everybody is." And she said, "Well, his name's in like 30 letters in the front of the building. I thought you might know." And I'm like, "Bert's here." And I was mortified because I thought he was going to kick me out. And like I'd found my home, you know what I mean? I was so thrilled there. And she called me over and I was tying an electric on stage. And so I went back to tying the electric and I pulled my hair down so you couldn't see me. And, and I saw him and Michael Deal, who's the scenic artist and scenic designer. And they came up to the front of the front of the stage. And I thought, oh God, he's going to kick me out because I'm underage. I'm not insured. You know what I mean? It was a big deal. And he came on stage and I saw a little cowboy boot and I looked up and I don't even sweat, but I was sweating. And I looked up and he looks down at me and he goes, "Hi, sweetheart." He kissed my forehead and I'm like, I can stay. I can stay. I was so excited. But I'm telling you all this because after I tied that electric, I'm like, all the other apprentices were going over to hear him tell stories about old Hollywood and Marilyn Monroe. And I mean, it was amazing. And I'm like, I'm not getting paid. I don't want to listen to the stories. And when everyone started going back to work because they needed to, I stayed until it was like he and my sister and I, there might have been one other person. And I somehow found the courage to say to him, because he was just so welcoming and so lovely. And I said to him, I know deep down inside I can act, but I feel like I'm being vain. And they can't hear me. And I never get cast. And he said to me, "If you know deep down inside that you can act, you'll love this." And he said, "That's a gift from God.
Mm.
And no one can take that away from you." And it just landed. And he said, "I don't know the name of the person who fired Clint Eastwood and I on the same day from Hollywood and told us to clean out our lockers. But I'm pretty sure he knows who I am."
Mm.
And the very next thing that I auditioned for, so it was summer, so I started my senior year. The first play was A Midsummer Night's Dream, and my
Mm.
first speaking role was Hermia in A Midsummer Night's
Mm.
Dream.
Wow.
I couldn't get a speaking role as a maid before because you couldn't hear me, but he just completely gave me permission to be and stop apologizing. And
Mm.
and I try to take that into my work.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's how
That,
it happened.
no, thank you for sharing that. That's so awesome. Wow. And you can't improv in Shakespeare, so that's yeah.
No, I mean, and that was the thing is that Glenn and Joy Evans were our director, and we had an amazing choreographer that had been on Broadway. And I mean, it was like the school was insane. We had an insane budget, and we had a real fountain on stage to
Mm.
represent the castle. It was crazy. But they would, we had to know the script backwards and forwards, but we could not do it in the iambic pentameter. We had to break up so that people could understand what we were
Mm,
saying.
mm.
And I remember, and we even had a rehearsal one time where we had to speak our scenes in gibberish.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I was 17 and we had to speak in gibberish, Shakespeare, so that we could really connect.
Mm.
Such an advance. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it was high school. I was so lucky. And
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, we had, packed houses, sold out
Mm.
houses. It was crazy. 500 seats, and they were also
Wow.
always sold out. Yeah, so I mean, I had an absolute just golden beginning and
Mm.
launch into this, and it took a long time. The first time I auditioned, I was 14 and it was for Oliver, and we had to
Oh, wow.
sing, dance, and act. Okay, so dancing's no problem. I love dancing, and I was like, okay, I was in cutoffs and bare feet, and everybody else had been dancing, in tutus from the womb. So, but I still somehow I did get cast as a dancer, but we had to then act, and I loved that part. I just you couldn't hear me. I couldn't project because I
Mm.
didn't feel strong. I didn't feel confident or worthy. I didn't feel worthy. And
Mm.
and then we had to go up to the choir room and sing. And I was the last one released from the dance group to go up there, and everybody was already packed in there. And the teacher, the director and the choir director, and everybody was in there. And boys were in there. It was an all-girls school, but the boys were in there singing and auditioning. And I looked through the window and I'm like, oh, I can't do this. And I walked away. And I did that. It took me a good 10 minutes. I walked down the stairs. I'm like, no. And then I just visualized the 20-mile drive home with my mom waiting
Mm.
outside driving me home. And I'm like, I can't handle that drive I have to make my, so I wanted it more than I was afraid of it.
Mm.
And I went in and I sang, my knees were knocking. My fingernails turned purple. I get cold when I'm scared. And
Mm.
and somehow I sang a few years ago. The girl that actually played Oliver, voice of an angel, she could sing. I was not a singer, but I learned to sing, but she was just amazing. She told me that it was down between her and I. Thank God it wasn't me. I was not ready for that to play Oliver. But you know what I mean? That's the thing is you don't know where you are. You don't know what you've got, and unless you throw your hat in the ring, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that was my first time on stage, and oh my God, I was hooked. That was
Wow.
actually it. Yeah.
Well, that kind of breaks the stereotype because I think a lot of non-actors maybe think that actors are like always these outgoing, extroverted people.
Oh no.
And I always find it interesting. I remember being backstage of a theater production, and it's like I remember I think she was the star of the show, and she did a great job being the star. But if you would have asked her to go on stage and make an announcement about something, it would have totally freaked her out. So she was totally comfortable being the star,
Yeah.
but then doing something extemporaneous freaked her out.
Yeah.
So you talking about your conversation with Burt Reynolds made me think about your class. And honestly, Nancy, like I couldn't tell you how many times just in my day-to-day life I think about things that I learned in your class. And even one of the big moments for me in your class was you would often say, you don't have to try to be interesting. You just
Yeah.
are interesting.
Yeah.
And I always grew up, I was like the class cut up and I was always trying to be funny and everything. And when you said that, it kind of like set me free. I mean, I still try to be funny, but like it set me free. Like, oh, I just can like be.
Right.
And it that helped me so much just not in
Oh,
acting and in life. And that's what I love about acting too is the crossover between acting and real life and how everything you learn in acting is applicable to life and becoming a better listener and all these things and okay, well that's my next question. How did you get into teaching acting? So
oh. Well,
so you
that's a funny story.
okay.
My acting coach at the time, I'd been studying with her for 3.5 years. It was Michelle Condrey of React, and she'd had an associate coach. It was one of my fellow students, John McCalmont, who's a phenomenal actor. Um, but he didn't really, he taught kind of his own method, I would say. He didn't really kind of lean into the Meisner so much, you know. And Michelle came in one day, and oh, and 2 days before this, I came home from class and I was so frustrated because I just
Mm.
said, "All right, God, what do you want?" Like,
Mm.
I said, you know, do I have to get plastic surgery? Do I have to move, you know, break up with my, I was serious. I was like, do I have to break up with my then boyfriend, who later became my husband, you know, move out to LA, put it on a billboard and I will do that.
Mm.
2 days later, she came into class and said, oh, I have too many people on my waiting list, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, she's going to talk for a while. So I'm ADHD. So I just started looking at the new headshots on the wall. And she goes, Nancy, do you want to teach a class? She said, literally, she said, you're the only one who's qualified. And I'm like, I'm not qualified. Why am I qualified? But I had been sitting right next to her for years, and she sees things visually.
Mm.
And I was able to articulate the words that she, to paint, to describe and depict
Mm.
what she was just seeing. And I kind of had been doing that for a long time. And so, and I used to teach. I was a volunteer at a juvenile detention center in Dallas. Gosh,
Wow.
I can't remember the name of it right now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did that for 2.5 years at 25, and taught. I didn't know how to teach. I just winged it, and I taught the choreography to Thriller, and that was an unbelievable experience. Oh my And then, yeah, I brought it like the kids were so resistant. I know I'm segueing, but I'm ADHD. I'll start.
No, that's awesome. I can moonwalk, by the way, but continue your
Oh,
story.
I love that.
I
Okay.
can, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyway.
I believe you. I
Okay.
believe
Yeah.
you. So, so yeah, I was taking classes with Ludwig Phillips at the Adam Works Film Actors Lab, and there was a group of people there that was volunteering at oh my gosh, I can't, the name has just escaped me. But, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to work with kids. And these were rough kids. They had you know, runaways, but, you know, drugs, you know, all kinds of situations. And, so I went there and I was like, well, I know the choreography to Thriller. I can teach that. And so, you know, I had a little VHS tape of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and none of the kids were having it. They were just like, "This is so lame." They didn't use the word lame, but you know, they were just like, "Ah." And do we have to do this? And I'm like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Just work." And I would teach them like 16 or 32 counts, but then I would put the tape in with Michael Jackson, and when they knew the steps and were able to do the steps to Thriller with Michael Jackson, I had them, you know.
Mm.
And every week I would get new kids, so I'd have to teach them the old steps, and then I would have to add new steps. And then it was right before Halloween, and so I taught them, I don't know how many, 124, whatever, 28, whatever counts of steps. Maybe it's not a lot, but it was a good like part of the dance. And I brought in a makeup artist and some, you know, old stuff so they could make costumes and stuff. And for Halloween, they had a Halloween party, and not everyone's family came because, you know, they came from really difficult situations.
Mm.
But those kids, you know, they did the dance and they got a standing ovation, and they came back and hugged me. And then they did it again, and I was, I was theirs. It was awesome.
Mm.
And so then I, you know, started kind of writing scripts and teaching them acting just from, you know, what I knew, the minimum, you know, but whatever. And it was really great. Was there for 2.5 years, and then I got burned out, but I loved it. I won the Volunteer of the Year award that second year, and it was funny because they're like, well, we're having this dinner for our volunteers and we want to make sure you're going to come. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. I mean, yeah, I'll come. And they're like, you can bring someone. So I brought a date. And then they started describing somebody that was, well, I was like, who is that? That's sounds nice and whatever, looking around. And then they called my name up, and I was like, what? And they gave me an award, and that was really lovely. It meant a lot. It meant a lot. And I remember getting up there and not knowing what to say. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm speechless for the very first time in my life. And everyone laughed because I talk a lot.
Mm.
And, but anyway, so it was from that experience that Michelle, she had been sending people to me, like whenever people were wanted her to teach kids, she
Mm.
didn't teach kids, and so she would just send them to me without telling me. I would get random phone calls. I wasn't I'm like, I'm not, I don't know why are you calling me? I'm not a teacher. And they're like, oh, Michelle Condrey said, oh, okay. Why are you doing that? Because you're the only one I know who could teach kids. Okay. And so then fast forward to the 2 days after, I had a come to Jesus meeting with God. Like, what do you want me to do, man? Put it on a billboard. And she just turned to me and asked me if I would teach. And only because I had said to God, put it on a billboard and I will say yes, did I say yes. Because
Wow.
I'm ADHD. I 100% didn't think I could do it.
Wow.
Like, I don't even know how you keep track of one actor, never mind two actors, and trying to keep, notes in your head but that was my billboard, and that was 31 years ago. So, as a matter of fact, I was a waitress, and so I kept my job for a full year while I was teaching 5 classes because I was absolutely certain, one day everybody would be like, "Why am I paying you? What are you? Who are
Mm.
you?" And then I was like, after a year, I was like, I think this is gonna stick, and I quit my waitressing job, and then I bought a house because I had a lot of money saved up from the 2 jobs. But yeah, that was my story.
Mm.
Kind of crazy. A
Wow.
lot of God moments in it, though.
Which do you enjoy more, acting or teaching?
It's like asking, do I like dinner or dessert more? I mean,
Mm.
you know, I what I and my answer to that is teaching is my, meat and potatoes. I don't eat meat and potatoes, but yeah, it's like my, my meal, and acting is my dessert.
Mm.
So I love them, but like the one well, they both feed my soul in different ways.
Mm.
I love connecting to people just in general. And I love being able to share, mistakes that I have made so that other people don't have to make those. They can learn from my mistakes, and watch them come in wearing masks because of all the world is scary and we create masks because that's how it's comfortable interacting with people, and watching them slowly get comfortable enough with who they are and trusting who they are to where they can just take the masks completely off and
Hmm.
just be authentic and real in their work and in their lives. And that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
So
That
it's
makes me think of something you said. You said, I think, people watch movies to give themselves permission to feel.
yeah,
Something like that. I don't want to misquote
yeah,
you, but I remember that. And
no, that's verbatim pretty much. Yeah. People don't feel in their real lives. As a matter of fact, if they're depressed, they throw a pill at, not against anybody that takes any kind of medication.
sure.
It's important, but doctors are just really good at throwing medication at situations and problems instead of, and then people, if you can't feel depression, you also can't feel absolute joy.
Mm.
It just kind of like it puts you in the gray area, which is good if you're in a dangerous place, but then it also kind of mitigates your true joy and happiness. um,
Yeah.
and so you don't really feel it,
Yeah.
but when you go to a film or watch TV or something, you transcend that and you allow yourself to connect to, I always say actors are their conduit for people's emotions, and
Mm.
so, whatever journey we are on, people kind of like ride on our coattails to feel. I mean, I do, you know,
Yeah.
and so, that's our job. And so in order to be effective and really take people on a ride, we have to be willing to, I always say, pull my heart out of my chest and just hand it to the audience. Here you go.
Hmm.
You know, feel something you don't, but this is all I got. This is my heart. This is, so take it for what it's worth.
That makes me think it's so interesting because you talked about pride earlier, but acting in many ways it's the opposite of that. It's very humbling because you're exposing yourself to judgment constantly.
Yeah.
And And like you said, taking the mask off, it's not like acting back in ancient Greece where you're putting a mask on. Like
Yeah.
you're taking it off for people to um so how
Connect.
do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with the rejection, but also just the hectic nature? So the other day I got a call back for a commercial and I'm like, my son has a T-ball game and I'm trying to get new headshots and just the constant, I love acting, but sometimes I get weary of just on the one hand, it's exciting because any email that can come through, you never know when it's going to be a new audition or so. So there's the positive aspect of it, but then sometimes it's just like, exhausting because you audition all the time. And how do you deal with that? Just whatever that is.
I mean, I'm
That's yeah.
old. It's been so
No, you're not.
I am so old. I just had my 45th high school reunion. I'm ancient. But um, initially everything that I auditioned for, I was emotionally married to.
Hmm.
So not if I didn't get cast, it was very difficult. And we're
Hmm.
talking about theater because that was back in the day. That was my first foray into acting is theater. Um, and my true love, honestly, is theater.
Hmm.
But eventually, especially when you do it more and more, you just get conditioned. You're like,
Hmm.
you understand it's a numbers game. You understand. Um, I remember one time in my 20s, I literally had a casting director. I think she called me and said, Nancy, I just want you to know, because I went in and I was her favorite. I was the casting director's favorite. I was the director's favorite, but the client wanted to go a different way.
Hmm.
And she was mad and she wanted, but she was kind enough. She was just a wonderful casting director, and she wanted to let me know it wasn't me. Because I'm like, they
Hmm.
loved me in there. It was like crazy. It was like a party. I'm like, I got this, and so that that helped that she actually took the time to say that. I'm like, so when I don't get cast, it's not because I wasn't the strongest, and didn't present my, give them my all, and they didn't love it. It just they went a different way. And
Hmm.
so, and that's going to happen. That's going to happen to other people, and I'm going to book something, and that's going to happen to me, and they're going to book something, and it's a numbers game. You can get very discouraged, and I absolutely have. As a matter of fact, last year was just really tough for me, and I just said at the end of the year, I said, Greg, I have to do a play. I
Hmm.
need a play. I need to audition for a play. I need the rehearsal period. I need the performance that's unadulterated. No one's going to come in and cut this or take this take instead of that take, and whatever I throw down on the boards, that's just me. And my soul needs that.
Yes. Hmm.
And then a friend of mine, Patty, beautiful, phenomenal actress and writer, now writer at 80. She just wrote her
That's
first
awesome.
screenplay, or first play, Mama Won't Die. She reached out to me and said, "Will you audition?" And she said, "I know you've got work, but there's these two roles. If you could audition for these two roles, I think Dell might be able to work around your schedule." I'm like, I don't want him working. And I told her, it's like, I don't want him working around my schedule. I want to rehearse. I want to play. I want the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I said, what about, and so of course I asked about the lead. I'm like, what about Jamie? And she's like, well, Morgana Shaw. I said, well, good decision. She's fabulous, of course.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what about an understudy for Jamie? And she's like, well, we'll talk about it at the audition. And this was just through text. And I'm like, talk about it at the audition. That doesn't sound promising enough. I was like, I am going to memorize, Jamie has a one-page monologue. And so I memorized the one-page monologue, and I'm like, it's a six-page scene. I'll memorize the whole scene. And so I memorized the two other characters, and I had that one down. So a week before the audition, I said, reached out and said, hey, by the way, I just happened to have memorized Act One, Scene Two. If you want to audition me at the audition for the understudy of Jamie, because it's a big role. You might need an understudy. I don't know. And because I just really wanted to roll around in a play. And I didn't hear anything back that day. And I thought, oh, this is going to be the most uncomfortable audition I ever have been to in my life. And then that night they came back and said, would you be interested in auditioning for Libby, which is Jamie's daughter? And Morgana and I are the same age. And I'm like, sure, I'm not going to question it. So I memorized two more scenes. So I had like 24 pages memorized for that audition because I was determined. I had four costume changes. I wore black, and then I just had different costume pieces for each character. And and then they cast me as Libby, and and Libby happens to. So the name of the play, Mama Won't Die, and because her mom lived to 108, while my mom lived to 102.
Oh my
And we
goodness.
used to have conversations about it all the time. And her mom was a little cranky sometimes, and so she wrote a play about it, and it's very funny. And my character, so they ended up casting me as Libby, so I'm the granddaughter, and Morgana Shaw, who's my age, is my mother, but they're gonna, I guess, my understanding is they were gonna age her up because she looks like a teenager, so you know. But and my character's name is Libby, and that was my mother's name.
Wow.
Her close friends and family, and I played the caregiver of the 108-year-old, and I was the caregiver of the 100, for 7.5 years with my mom. So it's when, it's kind of I spoke I need a play, and boom, that kind of happened. So I'm very
Oh,
excited.
that's all. Well, I know you will do amazing on that. Yeah. I love theater too. It's like I would live at the theater, but just the time commitment is so much, but that's awesome
Oh,
that you're doing that.
you were asking. I segued. So yeah, you were asking me how do you do it with all the
Oh yeah, with the rejection and everything.
so the rejection
Juggling everything.
and the time, the juggling, everything. I know that when I don't have it, there's an emptiness,
Mm.
just a lack. Life is just a little bit tinged with gray, and
Yeah.
so I try to remind myself. And I've had times when I've been overwhelmed and I've just absolutely been burned out and hated it because I'm like I can't, and nothing's happening, and I got to turn out another audition, blah blah blah. And now I try to look at auditions as opportunities to act. That's my
Mm.
moment. Maybe I'm the only one who'll ever see it. I mean, the people that watch the tapes and that's it. I don't know. Um, but I try to just soak that up and just kind of be grateful for opportunities
Mm.
and have fun with them. I look at like each individual taping is kind of like my own personal class. Maybe I'll learn something that I can teach my students
Mm.
and that I can share. Um, but as far as the overwhelm, yeah, it can be. But I've had many mental paradigm shifts, I would say, throughout this, where I've been overwhelmed with stuff, and then I realized, well, that's not getting me I'm not get. I'm doing the work, but I'm not getting cast because I've got this negative energy,
Mm.
about having to do all these things, and so I find that when I'm excited and I'm more grateful, I tend to book more,
Yeah.
you know, and so I look at it as, oh yay, a new complication. I've got to squeeze this in between A, B, and C, and let's see how creative I can be in doing that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. But
Yeah.
it's a journey. It's a juggle.
No, you're so right. Like that's one of the reasons I do this podcast just because I have to create something.
Yeah.
And then kind of like you said, the energy shift. I noticed when I audition now, it's like I feel, I don't know, like I'm excited about it, but I'm less needy because I'm always creating something. And
Yeah.
it does help because I don't feel like just
I,
out of control.
yeah.
Okay, I have a couple more questions I want to ask you. Thank you so much for your time, Nancy. I really enjoyed
This
this
has been a
conversation.
blast. Jeanette.
I love,
I miss you.
I miss you. How how do you, my experience in class was I was always astounded at the level of actor that I would encounter, like in your class, for example.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you'll watch a movie sometime or a TV show and you'll be like, who was casting this? Because no offense to this person, but
I
like
know.
I literally know somebody on Wednesday night that would, anyway, not being
Yeah.
negative. I guess my point is there's so many actors that nobody's ever heard about. Like you said, maybe their resume on IMDb isn't maybe as big as somebody else's. How would you define success for an actor?
Oh, that's very. I think that's individual. Me
Mm.
personally, I've had to come to terms with it because I mean, I think I'm a strong actor, and when I was back in class, when I remember when I was telling you I had a come to Jesus meeting with God because I was like, "What do you want from me?" Literally that day, I killed my scene and had the class was coming up to me and going, "What were you thinking? How did you get there? What was your preparation?" And blah blah blah. And I'm like, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, I got to leave early because I got to go have an audition," and I wasn't getting any of that, And I'm like, "What? What do you?" And do you see what I'm saying? So.
Yeah.
Um, I, I do believe that I've really honed my craft,
Mm.
and I can always get better. But I had to come to terms with, when I thought I had to have an Oscar by the time I was 25. And
Mm.
I did my first professional play here in Florida, Stage Company of the Palm Beaches with Jose Quintero, um, who was, you had to be invited by the owner of the director of the theater to even audition for him. He was a big deal. He started the Circle in the Square Theater in New York, um, and so
Mm.
he just loved me for some reason. I was like his little nugget, and he had told not to me, but to the stage manager, if she keeps studying, by the time she's 25, she'll be a great actress. Well, he discovered Geraldine Page, Jason
Mm.
Robards, like really big people, and I was like, I have to have an Oscar by the time I'm 25. So instead, I had a nervous breakdown when I turned 25, and
Wow.
yeah, it was because there was all that pressure, and I really did.
Mm.
I just believed it. That was like I let him down because I didn't get an Oscar, and so that used to be my measure of success. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And success is not an external; it's an internal.
Mm.
There are many people that have Oscars that 5 minutes afterwards, like, well, so and so really should have won it, and they
Mm.
self-deprecate and they don't. And so I feel like success is an internal thing.
Mm.
Um, I know brilliant actors that, for whatever reason, didn't continue to act, but they, you know, made me laugh, broke my heart in my class, and then maybe stopped acting for whatever reason. Do you know what I'm saying? But they became like amazing human beings.
Mm.
To me, that's a successful actor. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Acting is about transforming, and so
Mm.
you start by transforming yourself, and then whoever you connect with, you have opportunities to meet and transform other people just through trusting yourself, not second guessing, not being in your brain going, oh, why did I say that? Oh, what did I do? Just coming from your heart. So it's an odd thing. It's an odd business
Mm.
because you can be the most talented person in the room and not get cast regularly,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. And does that mean you're a bad actor? No, no, it does not. Acting has a lot to do with who you know and luck, and talent. Uh, so I feel like I can't measure my success from my IMDb, or
Mm.
from my resume, because some people have a great resume, they're not really great actors. Like you were saying, I was like, how did I, I am not getting it. But and for whatever reason, they knew people or they had doors opened, and then they just kept going through them. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So I don't think the measurement is from the outside. I think it has to come from within.
Mm.
And if you feel like there's no territories or emotional stones unturned, that, like, if I feel like you could sit here and write a script and throw it at me and I don't even have to look at it and I can breathe life into that, to me, that's a successful actor. You know what
Mm.
I mean? I have absolutely zero fear of any sort of improv situation, any sort of film, any sort of scene, any sort of relation, anything. And to
Mm.
me, that, coming from a place that was terrified of my own shadow, too afraid to even speak out loud so people can hear me, to having that kind of confidence, to me, that's success.
Mm. That's good. Well, let me ask you this. Um, as we wrap up, if somebody's listening to this and they want to be an actor, I remember speaking of Morgana Shaw, she was one of my first directors in a play, and I remember
Brilliant.
she was so sweet, and I was brand new, and it was kind of like I hadn't been in your class, I had no rhyme or reason, I would just wing it, and I never knew how anything was going to come out. And all of that to say, the acting
Great.
world is such like a bubble, and it's like it's this intimidating bubble. How do I get into this bubble? If somebody's thinking about becoming an actor, what would you say to them? I would tell them to find you and take your class. But what would you what would you say to somebody who's thinking about becoming an actor? Um, there's all this AI stuff coming out. Like, I don't know, what would you say to somebody who's totally just starting to
Mhm.
feel the rumblings of maybe a calling to act? What would you say to that person?
I would say definitely um, look at several different classes. I mean, if we're in Dallas, sure. Would I love you to study with me? Absolutely. But I'm probably not for everyone because, everyone has a different way of learning or a different, approach. I've had people say after class, the first time it's like, it's okay, Nancy, you can be really hard on me. And I'm like, I don't need, I'm a good teacher. I don't need to be hard on you. I just know how, I'll get you there. You
Yeah.
just got to trust me, and I will say to them, I said, I'm not going to, and may sound terrible, but I'm like, I'm not going to recreate your childhood just so that you can feel like you're actually learning. I'm not hard on people. I just, because I understand how our brains work, and that's creating fear, and is
Yeah.
not in conducive to someone taking a risk. And taking a risk
Right.
is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
So my job is to make people feel comfortable enough to go, I'm going to try this. I don't know if this is going to work, but if it doesn't, oh well, I tried it. Instead of going, always playing it safe, going, but I know this is going to work, so I'm going to do this because I'll get an attaboy from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, what was the question? I'm sorry, I'm ADDing on you.
Well, what would you say somebody who's like thinking
Yeah.
about becoming an actor, but they're not sure where they should start? What would you say to that person?
So I think you should look at several different classes. Somebody audited my class not too long ago, and they said, I really want to study with you, but I've got a couple of other classes that I'm going to audit. I said, which ones? And they told me, and I said, there was a couple that I was like, this is my opinion on that type of whatever. I said, and then I said, but definitely check out this class over here. If you like what I'm doing, this class over here is also going to be more conducive to that. Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? So, but
yeah.
but you should check out everything because everyone learns differently, and some people just vibes, with different types of methods or different coaches. So
Mm.
check them all out, see which resonates and where you feel most drawn to stuff. Also on my website, I mean, not to plug my website,
No,
but
that's what I was going to ask you. Where can we find you?
yeah, well, it's nancychartierstudios.com, but under the website, if you look under actors resources, I have a plethora of free information
Mm,
on there. How to format a resume, how to take a headshot. I can't tell you how many people come in, now with headshots being smaller. We want to have bright colors for commercials, and different colors do different things and have different moods. And people take their headshots and they show me their very expensive headshots, and I'm like, oh my god, you gave me all your Colgate teeth smiling pictures, commercial pictures in your dark wardrobe, and you had this beautiful bright
mm,
color, and you're giving me your dark dramatic angst ridden
mm,
headshots, and I'm like, that doesn't, I'm not going to pick that wardrobe for that look. I want the commercial in that because that you want to. So I have all of that information on my website. Super
mm,
helpful.
mm.
People, photographers that are consistent and really good, very affordable. There's a couple of pricey ones on there just to give people a price range, but just really great people to work with. And what a demo reel is, how to shoot a demo reel if you don't have any demo reel footage. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was in my 20s, my acting group, we threw our money in a pot and bought it was film back then because I'm a
Mm.
dinosaur. And so we would take the tail ends. They were called the film tails, of the films. And so when the film would run out,
Mm.
they're like, we don't have enough film to do another scene. So they would cut those tail ends, and then we would buy those tail ends at a discounted price because it was $100 a foot in film back then. And we would splice them together, and we would have one reel, and we would write our material, and we all got to do one scene, one time, coverage both, backwards and forwards, and that was it. Everybody
Wow.
has, this, 4K camera in their
Yeah.
hand all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there is no reason you don't have a demo reel right now.
Yeah.
So I have, how to do that on my, so I have lots of real helpful information on there, and the different agents and how, all the different sites that you need to be on. There's a lot of different materials that agents need now, and it's super important that those materials are updated and kept up with, so that when they pitch you to a casting director, the casting director click on those things and see all your materials, and you look like you, and everything's current. So there's just a lot of really helpful information on my website that's free.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Wow.
try different
Yeah.
acting coaches, and do a play. I mean, plays are great. They're really good training grounds for acting for 2.5 hours, having to memorize. You don't get it back to one, and it's
Hmm.
just a keep it going. And there's something that kind of feeds your soul. You're like, oh, I didn't have to do it 5 million times. I just did a play all the way through.
Mm.
So yeah, plays are great.
That's awesome. Nancy,
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending time with me
Oh,
I don't know, I won't cry again, but thank you so much for your impact on my life and for all of your wisdom and encouragement over the years. And I'm so thankful to be your friend.
oh, I love that. I love you. I miss you. I'm telling you, those were magical years that you were in class. I mean, it was, pre-COVID, and the phones have changed the classes. It's a little bit different now. Do you know what I mean? People aren't as
Yeah.
focused as before. So yeah, those were magical days, and you're a brilliant, brilliant freaking actor. So I love that you're still working, and I love that you're doing this. And thank you for having me. This was
Yeah.
fun.
Thanks, Nancy.